Hello everyone, back to one of my theory videos. It's funny, since this will be my third theory video, where the main focus will be about Michael Afton. Today's video, you could probably guess by the title, is about the games we play as Michael Afton, and why I believe it's FNAF 1 through 6. To start off, we'll talk about FNAF 1, and I'll let you know this part will be really quick. In FNAF 1, we play as a night guard named Mike Smith, and we know this is Michael because of Mike owning the Survivor logbook, where he draws pictures of things in Sister Location, who only Michael Afton would know since we play as him in Sister Location. Also, the name Mike can be seen on the hand unit that Michael Afton uses, confirming that Mike is an alias for Michael Afton. Now we'll start with FNAF 2. It's still highly debated in the FNAF community if we play as Michael Afton in this game. On night 1 through 6, we play as a night guard named Jeremy, which isn't Michael and is heavily theorized to be the victim of the bite of 87, which I also believe. But on night 7, we play as a night guard named Fritz Smith, who I argue is Michael Afton. First, Mike Smith, the night guard for FNAF 1, which we know is Michael, and Fritz Smith both get fired for similar reasons, with that being odor and tampering with animatronics. One good argument for this evidence is Mike from FNAF 1 also gets fired for unprofessionalism. And if Mike is younger during FNAF 2, wouldn't it make sense that he would also get fired for being unprofessional? Now, a good question you may be asking is, why does Michael Afton not just use his name? Well, the answer to that is Michael needs an alias, or aliases, because of his actions of his father, William Afton, with William being a suspect of the murders and the last name Afton being well known at Fazbear's Entertainment. And in the logbook, Fazbear's Entertainment states that they won't hire any past employees, so he would need an alias to keep working. Now, if Fritz Smith is Michael's alias, then what other connections do they have? The last name Smith actually has a German equivalent, which is being Smith. Where did I hear that name before? Oh yeah, Mike Smith from the FNAF 1 guard, that we know is Michael Afton. Okay, yeah, but what does the name Fritz have to do with Michael? The name Fritz is the same name of the spirit inside of Foxy, with Michael Afton having a connection to Foxy because of him being Foxy Bro from FNAF 4. But I definitely wouldn't say this piece of evidence doesn't have its flaws, since Jeremy is the night guard on night 1 through 6, also has a name that connects to a spirit in an animatronic, with that being Jeremy, who is inside of Bonnie. And if you believe Jeremy from FNAF 2 is the Bonnie bully from FNAF 4, then he couldn't be the Jeremy from Help Wanted 2, because we know in the week before book, the bite victim of the bite of 87 is immobile and is unable to move or speak or anything of that kind of actions. So it would not make sense if he was the Help Wanted 2 player.
But why would Mike be in FNAF 2? Well, we don't have a real answer for even FNAF 1. With most people assuming it's either Mike trying to set the spirits free or him being ordered by William to tamper with the animatronics. I understand why people might disagree because of how young Mike would be and how some of the evidence can be debunked. But on the other hand, with Smith having Smith as a German equivalent, I still believe Fritz is Smith, and I believe that Scott's been hinting towards this. On to FNAF 3. This is the most debated in the community on who we play as because we don't get a name of the night guard, like in FNAF 1 or 2. There will be 2 sections in this evidence for the games, and with the first half, and the second half being from the books. First off, the guard in FNAF 3 sees visions of the past animatronics, with them being from FNAF 1 and 2. With the only characters seeing the FNAF 1 animatronics, or characters, in-game being Michael, Henry, or Ralph. Ralph is the phone guy if you didn't know, but Ralph would be dead at this point. And Henry does have some evidence, but I would say Michael has the most evidence and motivation, and the only characters in game seeing the FNAF 2 characters being Jeremy and Fritz. So if we play as Michael in FNAF 3, he would have needed to see the FNAF 2 characters at some point, so he would have to be Jeremy or Fritz. And we know he can't be Jeremy because of him being the victim of the bite of 87, and him being immobile according to the week before book, so he would have to be Fritz. At the end of Sister Location where we play as Michael, he says, "I'm going to come find you," referring to William, his father, who is in FNAF 3, is Springtrap. We are then shown a scene of the aftermath of the FNAF 3 fire. Some argue that when Michael says he's going to come find you, to find William, it's actually taking place after the FNAF 3 building already burnt down. That would mean, if you believe in that theory, that Sister Location takes place during or after FNAF 3. But instead, I believe this scene is actually meant to tell the community that this isn't the last time we will see Springtrap and he doesn't die in FNAF 3. And I believe this because FNAF 4 at the time was supposed to be the ending of the games. But the community was having issues with putting together the lore and believing in dream theory, and I believe that Scott wanted to tell us in Sister Location that we would see Springtrap again in the games, with his story not ending in FNAF 3. In the security logbook that is owned by Mike, who we know is Michael, it shows us multiple images of Foxy with a security badge, with some of the images even being Foxy with a security badge in the FNAF 3 office. Clearly hinting towards us that Michael is the FNAF Theory guard, because of us already knowing Michael is connected with Foxy because of him being Foxy Bro, and how many times Foxy shows up in this logbook, compared to the other FNAF 1 characters. More evidence being, in Michael's favorite TV show, The Immortal and the Restless, in the show features two characters named Clara and Vlad. In the survival logbook, Michael says he connects with Clara the most, and in the show, an episode features Clara burning down Vlad's house. Who, if we think Vlad represents William, then the house could represent the FNAF 3 location being burnt down by Michael. I have two more pieces of evidence for this section, the first one being small. In FNAF 6, one of Scraptrap's voice lines are,
"You may not recognize me at first, but I assure you, it's still me."
I say this is a small piece of evidence because if you think this has to mean that Michael sees Burntrap before, and the only place he could have been seen is FNAF 3 location, someone could argue that Burntrap is talking about before he got stuck in the suit. Another one of Scraptrap's voice lines are,
"That was easier than I thought it would be."
hinting that Scraptrap thought that it was going to be harder to kill Michael. And if Michael is the FNAF 3 guard, then that would make sense. Now for the section talking about the books. In the books, there is a story called What We Found, where there is a man named Hudson who works at Fazbear Frights, which is the FNAF 3 pizza place, and honestly, that's like all the evidence there is for this character has, with the story having many contradictions from the games. Now let's go over some evidence to prove even further that Michael is the guard and not Hudson. In What We Found, Hudson only has visions of his past, like his teacher, bullies, and his stepfather, but also had visions of the decorations in the building, unlike the FNAF 3 guard, who only has visions of the full animatronics and not just pieces of the animatronics, and doesn't have visions of humans. And unlike Hudson, the FNAF 3 guard sees the animatronics burnt down looking, while Hudson doesn't. Before I get into the last two pieces of evidence for this section, I will first say, if you don't know, the books are supposed to help us fill in the blanks of the story of the games, and that's why people believe that Hudson is the guard in the games, since we never get a name for the FNAF 3 guard, but in reality, new characters are created in the books all the time as parallels, and even if you believe in Stitchline games, What We Found is not in the Stitchline games theory. And in this case, the parallel could be that Michael is the guard in the games and that William was an abusive father. And the story could have been made just to explain what the phantoms come from, because we find out in the story that it's from Springtrap in the books. Now, more differences in the books than the games. First, in the books, the FNAF 3 location doesn't burn down, and instead, Hudson dies in an oven. And unlike the game, Hudson dies before all the nights of FNAF 3, with Hudson only living for one night. I definitely understand why people believe that Hudson is the guard, because of Scott saying that some of the books will help fill in the lore and the blanks in the FNAF lore. With this case being the identity of the FNAF 3 guard, but with Hudson having no evidence and Mike having a handfuls of evidence, I feel it's likely that the guard is Michael instead of Hudson. Now, that's the end of talking about FNAF 3. Let's head to FNAF 4. You might think, well, we obviously play as a child in FNAF 4, but you would be wrong, kind of at least. The crying child might have experienced the FNAF 4 in some way, but we know we play as Michael. Because of the player hearing the FNAF 1 phone calls, which only the night guard, Mike or Ralph, being the phone guy, could have heard, and Ralph being dead, it would have to be Mike. And in the logbook as well, we know it's owned by Michael. He draws Nightmare Fredbear, which only the player in FNAF 4 could have saw. So it's pretty accepted in the community that we play as Michael in FNAF 4. Into Sister Location now, which is going to be really quick. Now, I already went over with evidence for the other games, but in Sister Location, Michael outright says he is Michael Afton, which I would say is pretty strong evidence. Finally, in FNAF 6, it's pretty accepted that we play as Michael Afton in the game, with most of the evidence being from dialogue from characters. There is more evidence, but I will go over 3 since it's pretty accepted. Malted Freddy in the game, who used to be Ennard, says,
"Together again!"
to the player, which this would only make sense if they are talking about Michael, since Ennard used to be inside of Michael. So with this one piece of evidence, it's already confirmed, basically. For Scrap Baby's dialogue, she says,
"You're not who I expected to see."
and the only characters that she knows are still around at this point are William, who is Scrap Trap, Henry, which we know isn't a player, Bonnie Bro, who wouldn't be the character here because he shows up in Help Wanted 2, and Michael, who is the last saw in Sister Location after they scooped him and escaped through his body. And finally is Henry's speech, where he says that there was a way out for the player, but he doesn't think that's what Michael wants. And he would be right. The only character who would want to is Michael, because he wants to end all the spirits' suffering, put them all to rest, and finally take care of William once and for all. Story-wise, having us play as the son of William, trying to fix all the wrongs his father has done through FNAF 1 through 6, is a good narrative, and for Michael to finally be put to rest after ending Springtrap in FNAF 6. But what if I told you Michael still might be with us in the new FNAF games? We'll watch this theory to check out that. And thank you all for watching, and thank you guys so much for 500 subscribers. I will be putting some videos in the description that help me come up with some of the evidence in this video, and some videos that talk more about how Michael might still be in security breach. I hope I showed you some evidence that you might have not known before now, and let me know in the comments if you agree or not. I mostly post videos of theories and YouTube shorts, so if you want to see more of that, make sure you subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'm sorry this video took so long to make.